Alright, so, little man and myself. Hi. So today, when I was at the mall, I went so that little man over here could see the Easter Bunny. And for him to play. And we were walking around on our way out, and I saw this table, and it had some books and a CD and such. One of the books that I saw was Beyond Instinct. And I know that I've had callings. Now this is probably where some of you are going to be like, oh, she's cursing, I'm going to go to the next video. Watch somebody else's video. Whatever. But I've had callings most of my life. And I know things even when I don't, know things. For example, I knew I was pregnant with my son before I was pregnant with my son, if that makes sense. Most of you probably won't understand that. So I was going around and I found this book, and I was just reading it as I'm waiting on a phone call from my husband, who is currently in ICE detention. And while he's locked up, that's irrelevant. But while I was waiting, I was reading this book. And it really spoke to me because years and years and years ago, like a decade ago now, probably. Pretty close, almost. Like 8 years ago now. Close to that. I had a very difficult breakup with somebody that meant a lot to me. And during that time, I recall specifically being between two hard breakups, one that I had prior to that breakup, and the breakup that I had at that time, about 8 years ago. And both of the women I did not trust whatsoever. One, I considered a friend. I thought she was like a friend to me at one point, until I knew that my ex was cheating on me with her. And I kept insistent on that inside of my head, but he would never tell me the truth. Anyhow, they had kids, and long story short. Okay. She and herself, at the time, she was very much an atheist and against God. And there was the other one who, I don't know her, but I know she lied a lot. And when I went to visit that ex, who I wanted to remain friends with him, because we didn't break up over, to me, bad circumstances. It was just, we were supposed to be together, which is fine. And it just really hurt me because I found out a lot of information. But I also knew that she was lying. Anyhow, this book, because of that instance, this book really spoke to me. And something that I've really held on to for many, many years is how do you connect with atheists and help them understand that religion is real. God is real. How do you make people who are so insistent on not believing in God, get them to understand who God is. Well, a lot of times, atheists are very educated people, but very misinformed people. And a lot of them hold on to science. To me, science is great. Ever since the beginning of humanity, we all wanted to know more. What is this? What is that? What makes this? What does that? All this information. We've always wanted to know this information. And going back to my early days in Sunday school, a Sunday school teacher told me that she can't explain God because it's more than we can comprehend as humans. Okay, so over time, and going through years and years of school, I came to the realization that God is energy. Because if God is everything, and everything is made of energy, then God must be energy. And I argue this topic a lot with a lot of people. And people just continuously want to try and prove me wrong. Try and say that, oh, well, she's just crazy. Don't listen to her, or whatever, right? But this book that I was reading, it made me think. And it made me realize, actually, I've been right this entire time. Because all right. One of the things that I innately have is I'm a night owl. I predominantly feel better being awake in the later hours of the day, whereas a lot of people feel better being awake in the morning. And people like to argue this fact, right? Well, how is that if everybody is supposed to be awake at this time and go to sleep at this time? You were just sleep trained. No, it's always innately been that way for me. And this book mentioned savages, right? Now, when I came back to that, we think of cavemen, right? Okay. So, in the Garden of Eden, we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden because we made the choice to eat from the tree of knowledge, because we fell to temptation. Now, cavemen, we think, okay, well, science says it has to be, okay, we originated from apes, and then we came to this, and then we came to that, and okay. Anyways, regardless of all that, we didn't just go from, oh, we're in the Garden of Eden, to, poop, we're in a house. Right? Things have changed over time. And with that knowledge, right, we come to understand that people had to be able to survive. And going back to the science, we think of the food chain, right? Okay. Now, if a frog eats a fly, who protects the fly? Well, the frog has to eat, right? Okay, so if that's the fact, then we have to take into account that somebody had to protect us, humans, for us to survive, right? And therefore, made the night owl. Hi, I'm a night owl. Alright, now, everybody wants to know wisdom, as I said. And we think of cavemen as uncivilized people. But going back to what I said about atheists, they are misled. It is possible that they may have knowledge, but they fail to realize the intelligence of what lies between their knowledge of science and that of creation. Now, the bee, right? This book argues on the bee. Okay. Now, the bee is very intelligent. What gave them that knowledge? Did they automatically just know how to do this in the beehive? Perhaps, but how? If you want to argue instinct, like some in the book would like to argue, who installed the instinct into them? Well, those that want to argue that it was instinct in the book want to also argue that that knowledge as to what or whom installed that instinct into the bee is unknown. So that's where science stops? Is that what you told me? Well, if that's the case, then we are aware that that is where religion starts. Because we know that God is the one who gave them that instinct. So where is God? God is everywhere. Now, I also was thinking, right? I know a lot of things before I know things. And how is that? There's prophets in the Bible, is there not? Of course there is. And God tells us things to prepare us for things. People want to argue and tell me I don't know things, or I'm crazy, or whatnot, right? But they fail to realize that I have the knowledge of prophecy because of God. Okay? But I may have made decisions through my life that are perceived as being crazy. Why? Because I have made that had learned behavior throughout my life. And God always wants his children to come back to him. But we continue to be faced with temptation on this earth because God gave earth as the kingdom to his fallen angel. And God is going to continue and continue to try and bring you back to him. But you yourself have to realize that you are the bee. You were placed here on this earth with the instinct of knowing who the Father is. But you fail to your temptation of believing that the lies of the fallen angel are truth over what you instinctively are aware of. Now let's ponder that thought for a moment. If I know things ahead of time, that is because God gave me that prophecy. And people that fail to know that information and want to argue or say that I'm a terrible person, mistake that for me falling to the temptation that I have been faced with through my life. And if people put away their temptation and accept their instincts, then they will follow themselves back to God, who has been walking in the sand next to them this entire time. They will now find on solid ground that they are walking with God, who instinctively gave them the knowledge of how to go on in this life. So think for a moment. What voice do you listen to? We often think of the imaginative cartoon of an angel and the devil on your shoulder. Which one are you listening to? The one of temptation of the fallen angel? Or that of God?